12th century in Spain. And he says like this. He says, you have one tablet on the right, one tablet on the left. Very simple. Right tablet is referring to commandments between man to God. Left side is referring commandments man to man, person to person. Okay? Very simply. Take a look at the Ten Commandments and you see, hey, that makes sense. Number one, we have, I am Hashem your God. No idols. No name, no, you can't swear, you can't take Hashem's name in vain. You have to honor Shabbat, honor parents. Very much God-centered. Then you have the next one, no murdering, no adultery, no stealing / kidnapping, no testifying falsely, no coveting, no jealousy. That's all pretty much person to person. Okay, so that's the first very simple, very elementary, very basic understanding of how we see two themes within the Ten Commandments. The first thing, actually, I'm going to backtrack a little bit over here. This is just a random trivia question. For everybody who needs a short attention span break after 2 minutes, we're going to do a trivia question now. The trivia question goes like this. Who here knows where this English translation of the Ten Commandments first came from? Like, how was it popularized? This translation, Ten Commandments. Anybody knows? Very good. The rabbi knows. Charlton Heston, from the in the 1950s, there was a movie that was released called The Ten Commandments. Actually, it's based on a silent film from the 1920s. So the truth of the matter is, the Ten Commandments is really not an accurate translation for the Hebrew term of Aseret HaDibrot, Aseret HaDibros. Aseret HaDibros, usually, if you want to get very academic, it's called the Decalogue, or the ten utterances, the 10 matters, the 10 things. And the movie took it from that and made it the Ten Commandments, and that's how it became colloquially known today. So I just wanted to put that in your belt for a little bit. Okay. Next we're going to have, so that's the Ramban. He says we have 5 and we have 5. Very good. And if you look at the actual 10 commandments in the text, it bears this out very well. Because if you look at the first 5 commandments, God's name is mentioned a number of times. Each of the first 5 commandments has God's name mentioned in one way or another. The last 5 does not have God's name mentioned at all. Okay? Which is part of the reason why the first 5 is 146 words to it, and the second 5 only have 26 words to it because you're skipping out all of the mentions to God, among other things. Okay, so very clearly, man to man, we don't have the conversation with God. First 5 is man to God. Therefore, we have many mentions of God. So I want to thank Yaakov for taking the initiative, asking the question. Very much, even though the first part was chavrusa, you can definitely jump in to ask a question and say whatever you would like.
There's a question on the Ramban's interpretation. How does honor your parents, necessarily between man and God versus between man and his fellow person?
Okay, so I prepared. So in my paper, this paper actually was supposed to, in my mind, which I didn't communicate clearly enough to Rabbi Guppin, in my mind, this was supposed to be a handout everyone was going to have. And let me read to you in the handout what it says at this point in juncture. It says, I'm going to show you. It says, now we turn to the question you've just thought of. How is the 5th commandment in the category of commandments between man and God? You see that? You see that? I just want to show you. It says that right here.
One of those magic tricks.
You see that? Okay, so Yaakov Morton just asked the question that everybody was thinking about. What's the question that everybody was thinking about? Is that we just said the first 5 is man to God, the relationship of man to God. But in commandment number 5, it's talking about honoring your mother and father, honoring parents. How is that a commandment of honoring, how is that a commandment of between man and God? Okay, so the audience asked the question. I want to know if anybody in the audience can conjure up some sort of answer. Go for it.
Sure. So the closest paradigm we have to like a creator is our parents, right? Our parents raised us, they gave birth to us, they take care of us, they provide for us. So if you don't honor and respect your parents, then how much more so for something that's intangible?
Fantastic. That is the Ramban's answer. He asks this question when he's listing this, and he says exactly like this. So he said, I'm going to read it inside in English. He says, for honor your father, really this commandment is in honor of God. For in honor of the Creator, he commanded to honor the father who participates in the act of creation, and therefore this is part of the 5 that say like this. Now he just says it in one sentence. Other commentaries start elaborating this. There's another, not a commentary on the Ramban, but another very classic work called the Sefer HaChinuch, the Book of Education, where he goes through all the 630 commandments and he explains all of them. And in his commandment of honoring your father and mother, he says exactly this with much more elaboration and greater detail. And he says like this. He says exactly what's your first name?
Kurt.
What Kurt Kalman just said. He says like this. The representation of God in the physical sense in this world for a child looking up is their parents. You honoring your parents, really they're an extension of God, so therefore they are in that way a reflection of the honoring of God. And we want to bring this one step closer. We have a Talmud, we have the Gemara. The Gemara in Kiddushin says something that says basically this. He says, the sages say there are 3 partners in the forming of a person. There's God, then there's the mother and the father. When a person honors his father and mother, God says, I ascribe credit to them as if I dwelt between them, and they honor me as well. So honoring parents, in a sense, is really honoring God. Okay? And the truth be told, in the modern techniques of parenting and psychology that they say, if you want your children to have a good relationship with God, perspective, that really focuses on the relationship you have with your children as well. I mean, look, when we were younger, there was always playground arguments. You know, my father's stronger than your father. My mother is stronger than your mother, right? That's the way we look at our parents. There's the godlike qualities, right? That's like you said, the biggest manifestation we have in a tangible form is our parents. So we honor our parents, then we honor God as well. Okay, that is the Ramban's explanation. Are we clear so far? Okay, we're going to take certain steps. I want to make sure. Rabbi Gupin has a question.
No, it's clear.
Oh, it's clear. Okay. So we're going to do now like this. Now we're going to go to the parallel conversation. The parallel conversation is 1, we read the commandments across. Not down, read them across. So in other words, there's going to be really one set of 5 commandments. Okay? It's really 5 commandments just expressed in different ways. But let's go forward, we'll see. Okay, here we go. So we have commandment number 1, which is, I am Hashem your God. And we have commandment number 6. What's commandment number 6? No murder. What's the relationship? How do we read 1 to 6?
Life and death.
Well, Hashem is a creator, so don't kill his creations.
Yes. We need something a little. We need to draw that circle a little bit tighter. What do we say when God creates man? In what image does God create man?
God's image.
God's image. So therefore, when we say that that we're accepting God, at the same exact time, we're also saying that we are incapable of murder. Because since in that case, what's murder do? It's diminishing or it's taking away the likeness of God in this world. So then it's the same parallel, it's the same paradigm. And this is from a medrash. The medrash goes through all of them and lists out from the Mechilta. Mechilta was a medrash, which is a synthesis of different teachings of the Torah around the 1st century. And he says like this. He brings an analogy, a mashal. He says, look at it like this. A king of flesh and blood enters a province, sets up statues of himself, makes images of himself, mints coins in his likeness. After some time, some people, they upset his statues, they break his images, they devalue his coins, and in essence, what do? They diminish the likeness of the king. Likewise, the Torah equates spilling blood to diminishing the likeness of the king. So we have, I am Hashem, your God, you're acknowledging God in the world, so therefore, at the same exact time, do not murder, because then you're taking away an image, a likeness of God in this world. So that's how we read that across. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay. I want to say something very interesting. I'm very used to asking this question in my classes at Wesleyan and nobody knowing what's going on. So please don't feel at all intimidated or peer pressure that you might not know what's going on. You can definitely say I'm used to hitting them over their head numerous times until they get it. Okay. Now we go to 2. We have no gods and then we have adultery. Here we go. Please, can someone here imagine how does not having any other gods read across to not committing adultery?
Being unfaithful in a relationship.
Very good.
Well, what?
Being unfaithful.
Can we ask you to repeat what
I'm going
you
to
were saying,
absolutely,
because we cannot
absolutely. The rabbis, they just don't know how to talk loud enough. When somebody takes idols, yes, you know what they're doing? They're cheating. Who are they cheating on? God. That's adultery. So there we go. You read, no idol worship, no other idol. Same exact thing. No adultery. And there are numerous prophets. When they say their prophecy, they make this thing. Don't go after false gods, etc., etc. Just like, and they draw that parallel, just like a man shouldn't go after other women. So we see how they very clearly tie this picture together of no other gods, being faithful to no adultery. So there we go. So we're right now we have number 1 to 6, 2 to 7. So far, so good. Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. Rabbi Goffin understands. We're good. Okay. We have number 3. Number 3 is that we should not take God's name in vain. And now we have do not steal. All right, this is a toughie, I think. Okay, if someone gets this, then we'll give them another some extra sushi. I'll give you a hint. Okay, it's this over here. We shift. It's not really the same vein of the way we explained the first 2 rows. It's a little bit of a different. This is more of if you do A, then you end up B. You have something? Okay, I'm going to say it's not easy. It goes like this. This is a little bit difficult because he doesn't do it the same way. If somebody goes ahead and steals, then they will end up taking God's name in vain. Because what happens? Someone steals, they get accused of thievery. They have to swear now that they didn't do it. You swear on God's name. Poof, you just took God's name in vain. So whoever commits thievery will end up. So this is you see over here now, he switches it down a little bit. It's really not only is it a little bit of a different category, but instead this is what he does. I don't see, the commentaries I don't see really say anything about this. But instead of going from right to left, in this specific case, he's going from left to right. He's saying the second column of do not steal will lead you to the first column of that. So that's a little bit of a different, interesting nuance. Yes?
How's that differ from number 9?
Okay, we're going to get there. Right on. We're going to get there.
Would you kill somebody else?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, I think simply, very simple. You steal, some does not belong to you. God gave us His name only when we use it for the right thing. By using God's name in vain, we're stealing it from Him.
Okay, brilliant. So to say it again is that when you steal something, you're denying ownership. You're saying this doesn't belong to somebody. You're taking it away. Okay, that's what stealing is. When we take God's name in vain, you're saying that we're stealing God's name from Him. We're taking it away. We're using it for something not in its right category, not in its right boundaries.
For our good ourselves, not for Him. It's not His name. It's not. We use His name, not for His benefit, not for Him, not for God's name to use only for God, for God's stuff, for God's name.
So we steal someone's possessions. We're stealing it for ourselves. In this case, we're stealing God's name and using it for our own issues, our own thing. All right, very well. All right, very good. Okay, yes.
Just to add to what Rabbi Goffin was saying, if someone steals, they're not respecting the ownership of who the item belongs to. They're not respecting whose this is. Someone takes God's name in vain, they're not respecting whose name this is. So
that's a lack of respect. Okay, good. So respect is the connection.
Respecting who
it belongs to. Okay, yeah.
And then when you said about that stealing leads to taking his name in vain, it's from left to right, you could explain it that from right to left, that only someone who's not worried about taking God's name in vain will allow themselves to steal. If they're careful about if they're worried about this, that will prevent them from stealing.
Very good. Brilliant. We have a brilliant. This is fantastic. Okay, I'm very excited already.
Surprise?
Is that your question? Okay, here we go. So let's go to 4 and 9. 4 is that we have to observe Shabbos. 6 days of the week we work. 7th day we rest. And we have on the 9th, on the other side, the 9th commandment is you shall not testify falsely. What's the relationship between testifying falsely and Shabbos? That is that on Shabbos we are testifying. Shabbos is a testimony that God created the world in 6 days and He rested on the 7th. We honor Shabbos, we respect Shabbos, we observe Shabbos, we are upholding that testimony. We violate Shabbos, we don't observe Shabbos, then we are all of a sudden, we are testifying falsely and saying that God did not create the world in only 6 days and rest on the 7th. We're denying that testimony, so that's a false testimony like that. So that's how we would read 4 and 9. Shabbos is a testimony, we violate Shabbos, then we are testifying falsely in that regard. Clear?
Yes.
Okay, let's go on to 5 and 10.
But wait a second.
Yes.
But you're only proving it in the negative. You're saying if we don't do Shabbos.
If we do Shabbos, yes, Shabbos is called a sign.
Right.
A sign of relationship between the Jewish people. It's also considered a testimony. Testimony, it's one of the mitzvahs called a dut, testimony that testifies that Hashem created the world in 6 days and He rested on the 7th. So by observing it, by fulfilling that commandment, automatically we're testifying to that extent.
Okay.
We don't do that, then we're denying that and we're testifying falsely. Okay. 5 and 10 is, we have over here that it says you have to honor your father and mother. The opposite side of the coin is you shall not be jealous, you shall not covet. What's the relationship between these two? The Medrash says like this. I'm just going to read you what the Medrash says and I want your interpretation. Okay. The Medrash says like this. That whoever is jealous, whoever covets, in the end comes to give birth to a son who curses his father and honors one who is not his father. Read it again. Somebody who covets, in the end, comes to have a child who will curse his father and honor one who is not his father. What's the relationship between being jealous, being wanting, desiring, something belongs to something else, and then having a child, that will curse him and honor somebody else that's not their father?
Well, doesn't that speak for itself? The child should be honoring or respecting their parent, right? Instead, they're wanting this other parent to be their parent. So
Exactly.
their own parent.
Exactly. Being jealous means you're denying the connection with what you already have, and you want something that doesn't belong to you. So therefore, the flip side of that is a child who will deny the relationship to something they already have, aka their parents, that relationship with their parents, and instead honor somebody else who is not their parents. So that would be the connection between number 5 and number 10. Now I will say, this is the Medrash's, the Mechilta's interpretation of how they work. There are other Mefarshim that work on this parallel basis and try to figure it out and interpret these things like this. Yes? Do you have a question?
I think something deeper than this.
Oh.
Honoring your father, you're establishing the fact there's a mother and a father. It's a foundation of family, foundation of society, foundation of everything. Coveting is you are breaking it. You're breaking the foundation of marriage, foundation of family. Honor of family, father, it's not under family, you honor the institution of father and mother. The foundation, the pillars of society, the pillars of everything. Society cannot exist no father and mother. And by him, he's breaking it. The positive is a father and mother, and it's absolutely not that you came from, they give you, they took care of you, they brought you to this world. And anybody else, same thing. And that's the way it works. The moment we have no commitment and the commitment and the covenant to each other, If you go to other, this is destroying the whole thing.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Yes.
So I think to Rabbi Guppen's point, what's the language beyond no coveting? It's not just no coveting, but the precise language is worded in what way?
Friend's wife, your friend's daughter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Rabbi Guppen is relating it to that exact the precise language, which expresses the whole idea of the family unit, which also coincides with honor your mother and father. So I think the other language is not included in the paper. No disrespect, but,
Yeah.
but I think
I hear you say.
that's important to tie it into the parents
Very good.
Okay.
because it's familial.
Got it. Okay, well said, well said. We have a few minutes left. I want to go through two more, okay? We're going to go through the Maharal of Prague. The Maharal of Prague was...
Take 10 minutes, like, more and more.
Say again?
Keep more and more.
Go ahead.
We're going to have the Maharal of Prague. Maharal of Prague was a Jewish leader obviously in Prague. Many things associated to him, including the making of the Golem. He wrote many books. And a lot of them have to do with philosophy. So he wrote a book called Tiferet Yisrael, specifically all about the giving of the Torah. So in chapter 36 of this book, he goes through and explains a progression of the Ten Commandments. But he goes like this. He goes, it's a progression of 1 to 5, and there's another progression of 6 to 10. Okay, and he says it like this. He says we have to look at the first 5, not so much similar to what the Ramban says between man to God. He says like this, you have to look at it as a cause and effect. The first 5 are the cause, which he says the primary mover, the primary cause, the source of it all. And the second 5 is the effect, which is going to be us humans in this world. Okay, so let's see what he does here. And he's going to go intrinsic to extrinsic. So he's going to go move in to moving outward. Okay, so let's see. He says like this, I am the Lord your God, the first commandment. That is the commandment that should be a prime cause and the beginning of an absolute existence, right? There's only God. One God, that is number 1. Now we move, that's the essence. The essence of the world, of everything is one God. Now we move to a little bit, a step outward. What's a step outward? No other gods. So over here we have from one God. We go into the second commandment, God's wholeness, God's unity. There's nobody else, okay? So in other words, really what's happening here is that God said there's one God, and lest you think maybe we could have one mega God and smaller gods below hand, yes, underneath serving him, comes the second commandment and says no. One God and no sub-gods under. It's God's unity, God's wholeness, there's nothing else. One God, top to bottom, nothing else. So that is number 1. I am the Lord your God. That is intrinsic essence. One step out, no other gods as well. Okay? Is that, this is important because this is a base for what we're going to say soon. Yes? Is this clear?
Yeah.
1, and number 2 is nobody else. Okay. Now we take one step further out and say not only that, but also you can't take God's name in vain. Now, God's name is not intrinsic, it's not essence, it's not even one step out of other gods. It's a name. It's even less associated per se. So we're saying not only essence, not only the unity, but also God's name, which is even a further step removed. You also can't mishandle, if you will. You also can't violate that. Okay, you can't even violate Hashem's name, His honor, etc. That's more extrinsic than His identity or His wholeness. Then we say is that you have to observe Shabbos. Shabbos is a witness to the fact that Hashem created the world. So denying that, not doing that, is denying God's ability to create. That's further removed because it's not, if you will, for our purposes, not God Himself. It's God's creation. So it's one step further out that we also have to observe. So it's not only God Himself, not only the God's agency, if you will, His unity, not only God's name, but even a further step removed, you also have to be careful of God's ability to create. We also have to respect that. And number 5, he goes to parents as well. Not only do you have to do God Himself, but even God's partners. You also have to take care of, you also have to respect. God's parents, like we said, like God's co-creators, like we spoke about for the Ramban. This is the same exact thing over here. Honoring the parents, like honoring God. So therefore, that has to be taken care of also. So he has over here in the first 5, in this paradigm between us and God, he has moving from intrinsic all the way to the very out, that even God's co-creators you also have to respect and honor. Is this clear? Yes? So we have moving in, out. He's going to do the same exact thing in the second half, just from our relationship, our perspective. We're going to start in and move out. What's in? Number 6 is do not murder. Murder is the essential violation of a person. You're denying the existence of a person. That is the most essential, the most intrinsic part. Number 2 is no adultery. What's the completion of a person? What's the unity of a person? When they get married, right? The 2 halves make a whole. They're a whole. They're a unity. What happens when a partner commits adultery? Yes, they're denying that unity. They're denying that wholeness that they had. So that matches up very good with the second one of that. It's not as intrinsic as the person himself, but it's part of the completeness of the person, the wholeness of a person. Then he moves further outwards and says, you can't steal. What steal? It's not the person himself, it's the person's possessions. You also can't breach that. But then again, it's a step removed. It's not the person himself. It's not the person's completeness or wholeness. It's the person's possessions. Then he says, not only that, let's move a step further out. And that is, you can't even speak against the person. You can't even testify illegally about some circumstance, etc. So you can not only not physically take something from a person, but you can't even speak to that effect. And last but not least, he says, even more extrinsic, even more outwards, is that you can't even have something in your heart. Your heart, you're violating the person, the other person, in the very least way by that. The person doesn't know anything about it, you're not taking anything, you're not saying anything about him, it's only in your heart. So even that, which is the most far removed from violating that person, you also can. So he puts this paradigm, he says, it's the same relationship. It's the God relationship, it's the person relationship, it's the same principles from in to out, just depending on how you're looking at it. Is it from a God perspective to man, or is it man to man? But that's the progression of the 10 Commandments. That's what the Maharal says. I want to conclude with what the Rebbe says. The Rebbe has a sikha where he lays out, and he says, in order to understand this, he looks from a holistic perspective. He says, let's take a step backward, okay? Let's take a step. Let's see the whole entire picture, which I think is very classic. How they look at things, they take a step, look at the context, look at what we're talking about over here. What is Aseres HaDibros? What is the giving of the Torah all about? What happened? What happened was we had this invisible, to a degree, electric fence, if you will, between us, the world, and between Hashem. That's what it was. Let me give you an example. We have pages of Torah study here. Before the giving of the Torah, we would sit here, we would learn from these papers of Torah, and then we would just throw them away. It wouldn't be a problem. We would solve see, this was maybe a little bit of a perk beforehand. We didn't have the problem of Shemus pre-Matan Torah. We could throw away books, etc., like that we learned from, and we had no issues. There wasn't maybe we shouldn't buy Chayenu, etc., because we have a Shemus issue. No, it wasn't a problem. Chayenu was was fantastic back in the day. However, after Matan Torah, we had this. But why was it like that? Why did we not have that problem? Because holiness didn't feel at home here. We had opposites. Yes, it was like a magnetic force field. We had polarization. We had one side in Shemayim, one side over here, and there just wasn't a relationship between them. Opposites in those days didn't attract. It just didn't work out. So therefore, whatever the mitzvahs that was done pre-Matan Torah, they were temporary. The holiness didn't stick around. Didn't feel comfortable here. Didn't feel at home. And so therefore, we did its thing and went back up to Shemayim. Comes Matan Torah, comes the 10 Commandments, and Hashem says, ooh, it's a new ballgame in town. What's a new ballgame in town? We are taking down walls. We're breaking down walls. Therefore, what happens now is that spirituality, what we do when we have a mitzvah, feels comfortable here. It feels at home over here. We're able to take things of physicality and make them holy. And say, you have an address here. And it's not just two disparate things. They're able to come together now. And what happened? Okay, that's very nice. But what was the mechanism in place that happened? So we say the first was the first of the commandments. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Hashem said, I am going to come down. I'm going to make this happen. If you have two force fields, no matter what you do, apart from holding them together the whole entire time, they're always going to separate. We need to have a stronger force, something that is stronger than both of them together to overpower their differences and be able to have them unite together. That is what Hashem did. Hashem said, I am greater, I am higher than these two opposite force fields. They're the spirituality force field, the physicality force field. I am beyond those terms. Therefore, I am going to come and make it happen to break the barriers between them, so therefore they can coexist together. That is what happened by the giving of the Torah. That is the emphasis we have on Torah mitzvahs today. It's not just a mitzvah that we do, it's an effect we have in the world, that spirituality stays, and things become holy, we have to treat it with respect. So therefore, now we learn the Tess Dibros, and we say we have the first two about, it's the essence of God, it's God's unity, it's the most profound, intellectual, spiritual mitzvahs that we have. It's the so to say, the fulcrum of what it means to believe in God. And the top of the other row, we have what seems the most essential and basic and even basest of the mitzvahs: do not murder, do not steal, no adulteries. How do they coexist? And this is what the Rebbe says: is that this is really what the reason why they're included in the Ten Commandments is because this is what the point of Asher Rebbe is. This is the point of the giving of the Torah was, is that we can have the highest realms of spirituality. I am Hashem your God. Come down into this world, into the lowest, most, so to say, severe, most parts that we see most devoid of spirituality, and even in there they can have a home, and we can make the lowest parts that we're able to make that spiritual. So to say, we could spiritualize, if you will, the material, and vice versa. What we do is we take the material and we make that spiritual. So it's a two-way reaction. So therefore, I want to wish everybody that the message of a few things is that once we learn the Ten Commandments, it should never appear the same to you. You should always be able to see the connection, not like 10 random things thrown together. You should see progression, you should see the layers. Know that this is only a small taste. There's many more commentaries. That's number one. So that's just a small introduction. And number two is we should appreciate that this is one of the messages, or the main message of Torah is it's a power. It's a mission for us to understand the potential we have when we do a mitzvah, and it all started at the giving of the Torah. L'chaim. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Levi. You're welcome back anytime. The pulpit is always yours.